Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to Board of Selectmen meeting, Monday, May 14th. We open the meeting as we always do with the pledge to the flag. Mr. Clerk, if you could lead us. Please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So as far as our agenda this evening, we'll get into, first thing we'll do is we'll reorganize. After the town elections, we always reorganize, so we'll elect the chair, vice chair, and a clerk. And then we'll have an opportunity to introduce a Girl Scout troop, and talk about some good stuff that they're doing. We'll get into the mail. Town administrator typically brings us through that. At 6:40 or thereabouts, we'll discuss some housekeeping going into the new year. Board of Selectmen scheduling and procedures. At 7 p.m., we'll have an opportunity for public input and members' input. The only thing we ask is that if you do have any input and you'd like to be heard, just raise your hand, be recognized by the chair, and any comment should be done through the chair, and just that you be respectful. And we'll get into boards and departments. We have the Highway Department here to discuss Mass DOT Foster Street reconstruction. Mr. Stoddard's here for that. We will hear from the treasurer, $6.8 million bond issue. We'll discuss that bond issue. Some good news as it relates to that. We will have an opportunity to appoint a new member, potentially two new members, to the Space Needs Working Group. Then we will have a conversation with the CONSCOM regarding the Cloverdale project. At 7:50, we have to renew a liquor license, or reassign a liquor license, right?
Change.
Yeah, we're reviewing the ownership interests.
At 8 p.m., we have a recap of the annual town meeting from last Monday night. 8:20, we'll have an opportunity for the town administrator and assistant town administrator to give any reports that they might have. At 8:25, any other business, which would include any minutes. We do have to go into executive session tonight for non-union contract strategy discussion. We anticipate somewhere around 8:30 going into an executive session. We will return after that, I believe, to, if we're able to come to...
May or may not.
May or may not come out of executive session and do it back into open session, if in fact we have something to vote on, which will be done at open session. So we're looking to adjourn sometime between 8:30 and 9. That's the objective. Depends on who the chairman is and if they run an expeditious meeting. So, at this time, we do have the reorganization of the board, and as the chairman pro tem, I guess I officiate that, and would ask if there are any nominations for the chair.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Glady.
Okay, any other nominations? Okay, Mr. Glady has been nominated. No need for a second on reorganization of the chair. All those in favor of Mr. Glady as our chair for the next year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Mr. Glady, come on over.
Thank you. I have to move right now?
No, you don't have to.
I'll stay right here.
Okay,
Keith and I have to do some separation things before
I'll give you guys a minute.
Yeah, thank you. I've heard loudly the word expeditious, so we'll take that as a call signal and move right on to the next election of officers, and that would be for the position of vice chair for the upcoming year.
Nominate Mr. Knox to vice chair of 11.
Okay, and as the previous chair indicated, no second is necessary. Any further nominations? If not, then we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of Mr. Knox as vice chair of the Board of Selectmen signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Great. And third position for the upcoming year is clerk of the Board of Selectmen. Any?
Nominate Ms. Napoli.
Okay, the motion's been made to nominate Cindy Napoli as clerk. Any further nominations? Okay, hearing None, then I will proceed to a vote. All those in favor of Cindy Napoli as clerk of the Board of Selectmen signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
No,
Okay.
I thought about it, no.
All right. Well, thank you, and I'll do nothing more in the upcoming year than just to try to make everybody be as successful in their individual efforts, and all of us as successful in our collective efforts as we can be, as expeditiously as we can be. And a note of thanks to our chair, a note of thanks and a note of congratulations on re-election to outgoing chair Chuck DeCoste and newly re-elected selectman Chuck DeCoste. The town spoke, I think, pretty decisively, and your service is duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and the next happy piece of business we have is to hear from a group of local residents, younger residents, and some of their chaperones, and that it would be Littleton Girl Scout Troop 66292. Please come forward. We understand you folks have been up to some terrific good works on behalf of the town of Littleton. And Keith, should I just ask the ladies to introduce themselves? And
I would say so.
okay, and they know why they're here, right? Okay, so please let us know who each of you are, if you don't mind.
Thank you for inviting us. I'm Katie Kolchak. I'm Regan Donovan.
And I'm Montana Gott.
As you already know, we're part of Littleton Girl Scouts Troop 66292. We're working on a bronze award. It's like a leadership award, so we have to take charge of a part of the project. It's like part of a take action and make a difference in the world, like part of the bronze project. Yeah. So we like veterans and we want to show our appreciation. So we interviewed veterans, we interviewed retired and active duty veterans, and they a lot of them they went in because they wanted to protect us and they want to give freedom to our country. And so we wanted to thank those who are currently serving. So we're doing care packages for them, and so there are some items that they want to need, and then we'll go over them.
So we have these boxes all around town for donations. We have one in Donlands and the library. The VFW, and then we have it on Third Thursday and Knox. And what they have suggested stuff as travel toiletries, lip balm, sunscreen, and for any entertainment or anything like books, movies, puzzles, any of that. And then for foods like jerky, gum, protein, bars, nuts, bars, drinks, and coffee.
Coming up in our project, we are collecting donations right now. But coming up, we are going to make cards at Third Thursday to put in the care packages for the veterans. We are going to pack and ship the care packages for veterans, and we're going to educate younger Girl Scout troops about veterans. Honor them. Yeah. So, thank you for.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, please, girls, don't leave just yet. Cindy, you brought this to our
I
attention.
did, I brought
so-
this here. So I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the board and the veterans in the town for what you're doing. It's wonderful that you're thinking of the veterans. I just wanted to share a note I received on Facebook. I had actually posted the link to your project, and I received a message from a veteran who he grew up in Littleton, he graduated from Littleton High School in 1995, and he served 3 tours of duty. He's currently still in the service, and so this is a note he wrote that he said I could read to you. So it says, "I'm not confident words can ever truly express how much love a service member feels when they receive a care package like this. When you are away from home for an extended period of time, you think of home more and more as each week, month goes by. When you receive a care package from home, especially one that you did not ask for, you are immediately reminded home is thinking of you, bringing you that much closer to home. I still have every drawing and card I received over the past 2 decades from children across the nation. I did not know these children, but they wanted to let me know they were thinking of me and simply wanting to say thanks. I made it a point to write back as much as I could. Efforts like this are always very much appreciated. Thank you, Girl Scout Troop 66292. So thank you very much, girls. So here's a donation for your efforts. Thank you very much, girls. Thank you for coming by.
Make us proud to be from Littleton.
Thank you.
All right, terrific. Yep, Keith, if you wouldn't mind leading us through the mail packet?
Sure, happy to do that, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I wanted to start with something that wasn't in the mail, but it was tweeted, and some great information that U.S. News and World Report last week ranked Littleton High School as number 22 in Massachusetts high schools, and nationally we were ranked 532, and we're very, very proud of that, the continuing accomplishments and recognition that our school system gets here in Littleton. Other items in the mail, some invitations coming up. Council on Aging volunteer lunch is this Wednesday at noon here. This Saturday at 9 a.m. Is the ribbon cutting for the fire station. There's a copy of the invitation on the screen, and it's been available on social media and gone out to all folks. I talked with Senator Eldridge and Representative Arcero. Jamie will be here for sure, and Jim will be here if his travel schedule allows. So they're both very happy to be joining with us, and hats off to the chief for organizing the event and bringing us to this day, or bringing us to Saturday. So, then we have a communication from the Veterans Agent listing the activities for Memorial Day, which is this year, May 28th, that Monday holiday. And the last item I put in is just to share with the board that I've been nominated for a 3rd year as president of the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and just wanted to share that report with you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, serve us well and promote the town in a very positive way.
Everyone seems to know where Littleton is now, only to keep me quiet, so.
Great. Move right along then to the 640 item, Board of Selectmen scheduling and procedural. We do have a proposed meeting schedule carry us through September, and 3 related items: goal setting, schedule review of selectmen's policies and regulations, and annual town board appointment process. I do very much welcome everyone's input on how they want to proceed on each of those items. I'll frame it this way with my own personal thought, and I think we should use as much of May and June to focus on these items and get them nailed down. Because, successfully done, it really drives how successful the year can be. So to the extent we can keep other things off the agenda, that would be great. And maybe I'll ask Keith then to kind of walk us through what we have for background material, and then certainly entertain everybody's thoughts on those items.
Yeah, the very next meeting under this proposal would be June 11th. And if you wanted to have, typically we schedule, for goal-setting purposes, we schedule a special meeting. So you might want to pick, whether that's a June 4th or something else, but I think that might, I would ask that it, on behalf of staff, we ask that it not be next Monday night, because that gives us like 2 days to prepare for the next agenda. And when we get backed up, it was one thing when the agenda went out on a Friday, but when we try to get the agenda posted by Wednesday and get the packets out to you So 2 Mondays in a row is tough to do, but you typically would need to schedule a special meeting to do the goal setting all by itself. So think about an off Monday to do that. For the purposes of the annual appointments to town boards, that we typically spread that out over 2 meetings in June, 2 regular meetings. It usually takes about an hour or more each night. We take half of the boards one night, the other half for the second meeting, so that you have a chance to interview all the folks who apply and then make appointments. So we need some quality time, an hour or more for each of those meetings.
And you've already mailed out to
We
folks?
we have contacted, our office has contacted all of the incumbents to let them know that their terms are up. We've advertised in the newspaper and online what the term expirations are. We shared that information at town meeting last week. It's on LCTV, PSA announcements. And we have had a lot of applications that have come in already. The other procedural thing is that the board has the policy of reviewing all of its policies at your first meeting in June. You don't always do it then, but that's what the policy says. And it's more or less an opportunity, especially if there are new members, to familiarize them with the fact that there's this 200-page compilation of policies adopted by prior boards of selectmen. And until the board, as a board, votes to amend those are the policies that are in place, just as an opportunity to see those and to identify any areas that you'd want to have addressed in the coming year that we ought to look at for policies. And those are the sort of procedural things that we get to. The meeting schedule that's proposed is it's for 2 regular meetings a month, and it's they can just pick 2 that each month that it avoids the holidays, and if for example, if July 23rd and 9th and 23rd doesn't work, and you want to do well, don't do it earlier. Don't do it July 2nd, please. But if you wanted to push both of those back further in the month, that would work. But if the board is available on these nights, and they work for you, that we could finalize the numbers we want to avoid when, especially if a quorum of you is not available for vacation schedules or whatnot.
So why don't we suggest that, unless everybody knows their summer schedule already, we can adopt this formally at the next meeting, but give you a chance to look into your schedules.
Should probably adopt June 11th. anyway.
Yes, that's a good
As the
point.
next meeting.
Unless we want to go with the 4th, as Keith indicated, perhaps, too. There's no reason we can't have 2 weeks in a row, and it doesn't always have to be a Monday. We can move things around and add meetings, but we certainly don't encourage all that. We're just,
Yeah, you could do for June 4th, for example, as the next meeting. There's no magic to the 11th, and frankly, if we're not going to have a meeting between now and then it's, it's 3 weeks instead of 4.
What do we know about confirmed schedule items for June? Is there much out there?
No,
Okay.
so it's fairly flexible.
And I was trying to
We
think-
have no public hearings on liquor licenses or anything. Those are the events that tend to lock us in to
Right.
particular nights, and we don't have any.
Yeah,
We
I'm trying
don't have
to
any
think back
public
of
hearings.
commitments we made over recent months. I know the Historic Commission was looking to get back in with us. We promised we'd give them some time after
Yeah.
town meeting.
Yeah, library
trustees.
trustees want to
That's
meet
right,
with you
yes,
as well.
that's right.
so.
Yeah.
So then starting with the 4th or planning the 4th and the 18th, give us a bit more room if we need to toss something on? Goal setting or
There's
something like that.
I have a conflict on the 18th. Yes.
Yeah, there was something on the 18th.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Not allowed to say out loud.
Right.
because it's a surprise.
So do you want to add the 4th in addition to the 11th and the 12th? I mean, the 25th? Or
If you picked a,
or stick to 2?
yeah, see, the other thing to look at is what's the deadline for receipt of applications is the 5th of June. So for the town board applications, if you had a regular meeting on June 4th, we're not ready to do
We could do goal
the
setting.
interviews.
Yeah.
But you could do, right, you could do goal setting on June
Right.
4th. I think that might be
So that,
Way to
that
spend
date was in
your
play
next
essentially for that, but if there isn't a whole lot else pending, it's up to the board, but we've got goal setting, we've got review of selectmen's policies and regulations, and I promised to read the 200-page document.
Again.
Just because I don't think I ever have from end to end, so it's probably, who knows what's in there. Yeah, and as far as the appointments, obviously, that system seems to work over 2 meetings time. I would suggest that we also, I imagine board members would appreciate it too, as you get in applications, would you prefer to see folks who are interested in boards forwarded along? Since part of the process is recruiting people when we can't find anybody to sit on boards, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, we could give you, on a weekly basis, we could give you a
Email summary or
running
something,
list
right.
of who's applied, and we've got those, I think we had done that in the prior
Yeah.
year.
Who's applied, and in particular, if an incumbent has indicated that they
They're
don't
not going,
attend,
right, exactly, so we need to
that-
do recruiting.
That negative result would be very important.
In addition, it's not spoken to here, but I think on similar lines, our board assignments to various projects too, we need to think about that. If you want to keep what you have, if you want to trade things in, that's fine. Goal-setting process, I'll suggest this too, or just observe this and see what board members think. We have continuity in the entirety of the board from last year. That doesn't mean that we can't add new topics that may have come up. We've obviously made progress on a number of them. And if board members are interested in changing, we should give that some thought. I'd ask each individual member to kind of give your own assessment as to whether you think this list of topics reflects what we should be doing, if you want to add things, or, maybe each of us should give our own little memo, to the board through Keith, and we can discuss it now for starters, but if you want to reflect over the next week or so and then submit something, we can start with that process, just by everybody expressing what their interests are, and take that part from there. What is the board, let's start then in terms of decision-making on the schedule. Is the 11th and 25th, do you think it's adequate? Do you think we should assume we're gonna need a third meeting and go ahead and schedule the 4th? Or what?
I think to do goal setting right and the number of things that we have here, even, it's a little time consuming, but scheduling a third meeting in June may be necessary.
I think the 4th is probably appropriate for us to do.
Yeah.
We've got 3 weeks out.
Right.
Yeah.
It gives us plenty of time to do some of the assignments
Yeah,
you
right.
just put forward.
Or it's a one-item agenda, and it's to prepare for your discussion, and staff can,
Right.
it's not gonna.
Right,
staff
right,
can
it's
call-
not-
I would
staff
suggest
can call
maybe,
for 3 meetings. Yeah.
could be, we don't need to get into the board appointments because that process will not have been done yet, but we could do both goal setting and a review of policies and regulations. I mean, at least have those 2 topics on the agenda, so to some extent, they interrelate too. Yeah, and I would just say that works, and I'm fine with it personally, as long as we all do our part to, assess where we were at with last year's assignments and make some suggestions about changes on that.
Okay.
Now, one thing that's not on here is our retreat, as we had sort of talked about, is that in the offing, or?
Well, it's a good question, yeah, we did it in October last year, it's a good question to see when you.
Right, yeah, trying to understand what. the
Yeah,
objective might be.
I think it's appropriate at any point to discuss it. I'm certainly in favor of doing it again. I think I'd like to have a conversation with the board about what we thought in the structure of it worked, didn't work, whether we want to change things about it. I'm all for doing it earlier personally too.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to do it earlier, particularly if we line it up more with, the election and the changeover of the board, in the event that there is some
Change.
then that goal setting and that
Right.
retreat falls closer to the election day.
You want to, Keith, maybe look into some different options, if there are different ways towns have been doing it, what we did last year, just to get, I'm just looking for something that spur discussion. Beyond that, I mean, it's just as simple as scheduling it with a facilitator that
Yeah,
works.
it's, I think it's, yeah, we can look into that and, yeah, do that. But
And
if
if
you
board
want,
members
if
have
you want
suggestions, just
if you want to have a
forward.
facilitator, if you want to have the same facilitator,
Right.
then we could just see what his schedule is too.
Orders.
Because town meeting's in October.
Yeah,
Right.
that's another thing to be mindful. On the schedule, it sounds like a long ways away, but because it's October, not November, all the
Right, we've got
posting
eight
dates.
meetings until we set the warrant, right? Maybe 7?
No, it's gonna be set shortly after Labor Day, right, Keith? Yeah, so basically, it's July and August. Okay, so with that in mind, then we'll aim for doing the 4th, be a discussion of the goal-setting process, initial discussion of adding and post the review of policies and regulations, which are again available at the website, right, Keith?
Yes.
Yeah. And we'll keep the 11th, and
Did you want to,
25th.
did you want to adopt any of these meetings
I
now?
guess I'm throwing that out there. What's the board's pleasure?
I think we can go as far out as, I think we can even do June, July, and then if we do have any kind of conflicts, I don't anticipate any conflicts for myself, so if we're looking to get a quorum, then July 9th and 23rd, the August 6th may be a conflict for me, but if I'm the only one that's not able to attend that.
Yeah, I mean, I have no, sitting in my case, I have no hard date that I know is not gonna work here, so I could be fine with just doing all of it and changing it later if need be. I don't know.
Why don't we just make a motion to do that? Include the
Okay,
fourth?
I mean,
Add the 4th for goal
if,
setting.
unless somebody knows they have a direct conflict here,
Yeah.
then we'll
No,
just
we
go ahead
could
and do
do,
that.
yeah,
I anticipate the 6th being a conflict, but again, as long as the rest of them are
August
okay
6th,
with
well,
it, yeah.
if you want, we can go right ahead and change that now if you'd prefer.
Doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't matter to me.
I see, my August schedule doesn't look like much right now, though
Okay.
I'm sure it'll get
We
busy
could
closer.
do a week later and do the 13th and 20th, is that right, Keith?
you could, yeah. In fact,
You wanna do that?
some months we've done that. I'm hoping to be away the
Yeah,
last,
I'm definitely not around.
I'm hoping
Okay.
I'm hoping to be away the last week of August, so like the
Let's do that.
27th.
I usually do that too, what's that?
Yeah.
I was trying to keep it big, but didn't hear me. It was a friendly dig.
Yeah. All right, so,
Oh, we're both taking the same week off, is that allowed?
oh,
The
You and
chair
me.
and the
I didn't indicate when I'm gonna be gone,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no.
I wasn't sure what I did here.
Tightly held secret.
No, you had mentioned that you were gonna be gone the last week in August,
Yes,
and I said,
yeah.
let's do it then.
No, but,
Yeah. People-
So if I heard this,
Anthony needs the experience for that, so, doing the agenda without,
Completely able-bodied.
we're looking to add the 4th, and that would be focused on those two topics we mentioned earlier, the goals and policies and regulations. And that meeting will work if everybody reads the policies and regulations and submits their thoughts on goals in advance so we can get it out. Keith will also weekly, between now and the 5th, start forwarding the appointments so we can start giving some thoughts on that as far as any updates on that, people declining to serve or new applications. And we'll go with the schedule as is, with the addition of the 4th and the change of August 6th to August 13th. And I think we probably ought to have a vote on that. Madam
and did you
Clerk.
want to go into September or just stop at
Oh,
August?
no, I was assuming the September dates as well, is that?
Right, I think that's fair.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because you run into all sorts of holidays there too, right? So-
Right, yeah, yeah.
Can I just throw
You
out,
can't vote to move Labor Day.
as we've gone through and we've discussed policies and different things that have come up, we've kind of made note, and I'm hoping maybe we can get kind of a summary of some of those policies, we said we should review that
Right.
kind of along the way, so keep it there, Anthony, if there's any policies that, as we've gone down the road, we've said.
I have my own
we should
pile
take
of
a look
notes
at
too, which I
exactly.
need to go back and look at, I'm sure
Right,
everybody does.
And there's a list of financial policies that, we actually didn't review financial
Right,
policies
right,
last
that's
year.
definitely one we should,
The working group
yeah.
that didn't meet,
Right.
the FinCom Selectmen Working Group.
Well, we're starting earlier, we'll do what we can as quick as we can.
I know Steve has ideas, so.
All right.
Here he is.
Yeah.
Okay. We should formalize that with a vote.
Okay, You ready?
Yep.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule the following Board of Selectmen's regular meetings for the dates indicated at 6:30 PM in room 103 Shattuck Street Building, June 4th, June 11th, and June 25th, 2018.
The 4th, the 4th is going to be your,
Not a regular
it's not a regular meeting, it'll be in the next motion for the,
For a special,
for the goal setting, yeah, sorry.
so take out the 4th.
Yeah.
Okay. June 11th and June 25th. June 9th and June 23rd, 2018. I mean, July 9th and July 23rd, 2018. August 13? Okay. And August 20th, 2018, and September 10th and September 24th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? On the motion as presented, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. All right, I'll make that separate motion.
Okay, so now, move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule the following Board of Selectmen's special meeting for the dates indicated at,
No, for item 2B.
He's got it on the board.
Yeah,
It's in-
it's an agenda item 2B.
Okay, move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule a preliminary goal-setting exercise for fiscal year 2019 on the agenda of the June 4th, 2018 meeting with a public hearing on the adoption of fiscal year 2019 goals to be held at a subsequent meeting.
Second?
Okay, is that understood? The motion made and seconded? Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Good, thank you. All right.
Then, skip item 2C is for the selectmen review on
Policies and regulations.
Yeah.
Another one. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule the conduct of its annual review of Selectmen's regulations and policies for the Board's regular meeting on June 4th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded to schedule the conduct of the annual review of Selectmen's regulations and policies. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Good.
And last one is just to confirm the interviews with the town boards will be on the 11th and 25th. That lets us go ahead and schedule half for one night and half for the other.
Do we even need, I mean, does that normally need to be voted?
Yeah, we do vote, we have voted it each year, and the main reason is that we rely on that vote in calling people in on the night, and
Okay.
if you're not ready for them.
Okay.
We want to know that those are the nights that you're ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule interviews and appointments for its annual town board appointment process for June 11th and June 25th, 2018.
Second?
Okay, the motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And the board, mind if we ask Keith to also go ahead and schedule time sometime in the month of June, since we have a lot of open time with both the Historic Commission and the Library Commissioners to follow up on the topics that they wanted?
Yeah.
And obviously, anything else comes up, just shoot an email along and
Okay, so
we'll do that.
get mutually convenient dates during June.
Yeah. Okay. 7 PM, public input. Members of the public, if you have a topic, especially one that's not already agended for discussion, we're entertained at this time. Mr. Zeldin.
Michael Zeldin, Loanne Street. I'm also here as chairman of the Master Plan Implementation Committee. I'm very pleased to let you folks know that on May the 7th, we concluded, in the late hours, we concluded an agreement with Fort Point Group to help the town in a consulting role, to help the town select options for revitalizing the common. I just want you all to know that that's underway. Our kickoff meeting is tomorrow evening, so we're already, as it were, underway with contact with the program manager of Fort Point, and we already have an agenda and an action plan going forward that will start almost immediately. I also would like to suggest, in regard to your goal setting, that if you want inspiration and suggestions, that there are at least 60 items left in the master plan out of the 67 that the town expressed some sort of interest in, some very strongly. I suggest them to you as inspiration, mainly because some of them may turn out to be, as explicitly mentioned, not quite ready for prime time, but I think they might give you some ideas about things that you want to get started sooner rather than later. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. All right, any other citizen input? Hearing none. Board members, we'll start down on the other end there, Mr. Knox.
Just want to mention that third Thursday actually starts 1 month earlier this year. It starts on the 17th. It'll be the first time they're holding it in May, and the assistant director, Tim, has some new things lined up that could be surprises for new types of things that'll be there. So next week is the first ones at Bay Park.
All right, Mr. Gerby.
Recognition of the outgoing chair's request to make things expedient. Actually, I don't have much to pass along.
You were looking for a legacy check, I think you found
I
it.
found it, there it is.
Selectman DeCoste.
All right, I have a few. One, right off the bat, is there's been, and I'm sure you all have probably fielded some of these questions as well, relative to Long Lake, there's been some questions as to the changes in the fees and how people are being charged to use the facility. So I know the Park and Rec Commissioners are addressing this. I know the Park and Rec Director and Assistant Director are addressing it. They're putting together an FAQ, to the best of my knowledge, that will be posted on their website. But the Long Lake facility during the summertime costs in excess of $80,000, and the fees that are paid are used to offset the lifeguards and all the different expenses. So there will be some explanations on the websites for that. A number of people came up to me at the polls on Saturday and expressed some concerns and some interest relative to the change in how we're doing that. So if you pay your $40 fee to use Long Lake, that is, the parking pass, I believe, is included in that. There's some concerns around some residents that could walk to the lake, didn't have to pay for the parking pass. And so now it's not just a parking pass, it's a fee to use the facility. So that's just, I don't have all the specifics. I think I do, but I don't want to miscommunicate them. A couple of things I wanted to mention is on May 4th was National Firefighter Day. So it's kind of an awareness day for firefighters. And I'm kind of going retrospectively to May 4th, just to make sure that we do recognize the firefighters, especially when we have the grand opening on this Saturday. I think it's appropriate. But also, this week is National Police Week, so just so that we're all aware and show some appreciation. Last week was Teacher Week, and so I did reach out to Superintendent Clenchey and thanked all the teachers on behalf of the board, and so I just wanted to reach out to all the police and fire and let them know that we do appreciate all that they do. And the National Police Week was established in the 60s by President Kennedy, and in recognition and memorial of fallen heroes, but he also made the whole week. May 15th is actually the Memorial Day, but the whole week is recognized as National Police Week. I also wanted to thank Diane Crory and Sandy Clyde and all the election workers for all the effort and all the time that they put in on Saturday to facilitate our town election. And also all the candidates, especially those who braved the cold and the raw and the rain and stood out there, and all the folks that were out there with me. I appreciate them being out there and supporting all the candidates. And thank you to all the voters who expressed their confidence in me in allowing me to serve another 3 years for the town. So,
I thought of you when I was in California.
yeah, thanks. Yeah,
I was there in
appreciate those
Troy,
pictures of
yeah.
you in the vineyard.
So congratulations
Thank
on
you.
your reelection. I don't really have much to add. I just wanted to build on the mail in the Memorial Day Parade announcement, inviting veterans to march and participate in the parade this year. We'd like to see more people come forward and feel free to participate. I think a lot of times people feel unless they're personally invited, they can't participate, but honestly, we would just love to get as many Littleton residents and actually non-Littleton residents to come forward and participate in one of the longest running traditions, I think, in Littleton. It's a great event, so I just wanted to mention that, and you can just arrive at the Donlands parking lot, and there are going to be handicapped, accessible accommodations for anybody who's not comfortable walking the distance of the parade route. if you can just reach out to John Browski or Maureen Woods ahead of time, they can arrange accommodations for you so you can participate if you need assistance.
Were you looking at me when you said that if you weren't able to watch?
No, I was not looking that way.
It's just coincidence.
Yeah, it was just coincidence.
Thank you. And looking back over the previous week too, it was just a week ago when we were conducting one of the most seamlessly successful town meetings, the annual town meeting. How many articles that were accepted in the first call for?
21 out of 25.
21 out of 25 articles were accepted as a, what's the term we use on that, without a vote?
Yeah, the call of the articles.
Call of the articles, yeah. So, and that included the budget, amongst other items. So, I think we shouldn't grow to expect that, but all thanks are due to our professional staff and the town board members who volunteer their time in making that happen. And I think anybody who's tuned into the numerous meetings who saw how we handled leading up to the town meeting in excruciating detail whether or not to move forward on something, hopefully that's part of what sets the town's mind at ease in accepting the recommendations of the various boards and the officials going into town meeting, and we appreciate it. I think I speak for everyone in saying that. It makes the work worth it to know that the town supports you. And I'd also like to throw out some thanks to folks who were also, whether they were competitive or not, they were successful on Saturday, and we're happy to have them join us. Not new faces by any means, but new to their positions. Anna Houston on the board, the planning board, Erica Podgorny and the school committee, and not here tonight, but Kevin Baker and Louise Nichols on the Board of Health, and who am I missing? Park and Rec, Kevin Matrano and Sullivan.
Sean Sullivan.
Right, and welcome aboard to all of you. We'll look forward to continue working with you. Okay, Keith, we have some boards and departments that have some items they'd like to work with us on.
Yes, we do, and we start, our tradition has been to start from he who comes the farthest, or who has the longest drive home tonight, so Chris Stoddard, DPW, and you were briefed a bit on this project for improvements to Foster Street at our last meeting, but since then we've actually received the paperwork for a municipal project agreement for municipally funded design. And we've received that from MassDOT. The project works similar to the way that we did Goldsmith Street several years ago, and that is if the town brings a project to 100% design, then it gets approved by the state, then the construction funding gets paid for by the state in a sometimes a rather long process through the transportation improvement plan, the so-called TIP. But our project qualified because it was located it's on Foster Street, located next to the commuter rail station. It's targeted between Taylor Street and
Fraser.
And
Balsam.
Yeah, and Balsam Lane. And even since the state's project review committee gave a thumbs up to this project, we've had further discussions in light of a recent decision of the planning board, which donates, where the developer of the Cape subdivision would donate 5 acres on which we could realign Grimes Lane and add potentially 50 commuter rail parking spaces. That talked to Barry Lorian, the Mass DOT District 3 director, and he's very open to the idea that if we wanted to expand this project to also include realignment of Grimes Lane, it's something we can raise during the, as Chris is
25% design.
through the 25% design phase.
Because we have a 25% design now.
Yeah.
No, we don't have any.
No, we don't have the
We haven't-
design.
We've done nothing
Yeah.
other than conceptuals.
Yeah, we
Not
have
even
these,
conceptual.
yeah,
No, it's just really the
Back of the envelope.
PI, yeah, basically.
yeah, you got this, you got the
This is
the
what we have
concept
so
here,
far.
it's gonna be from here to there, and these are some of the improvements you might be able
Impact
to
zones.
do.
Yep.
And the Board of Selectmen has voted to authorize Chris to obtain 25% design phase engineering, and that process will unfold in the coming weeks and months. And when that's complete and it's been approved by MassDOT, then we would head towards the 100% design, which is also at our expense. We would we come back for a further authorizing vote of that and review the conceptual components of that with you and with the public along the way. But if, to the extent that what's attractive to the state about the realignment of Grimes Lane is if you can get, the intersection right now comes along right at the railroad tracks, and it's not a terribly safe railroad crossing. If it could be pushed back further, in particular, the concept is to put the Grimes Lane opening directly opposite the opening to the commuter rail station, then you have a safe square intersection. That might be attractive. The cost of Chris has given us an estimate of $750,000, round numbers, for realignment of Grimes Lane, so we want to, we'll examine this thoroughly and with plenty of public input as we go forward, but if it looks like something that you want to include, the state would be amenable to it, and MBTA as well. We talked with those folks about it, and they would be, I think, similarly supportive.
So you included a copy of the proposed municipal project agreement. Board members have any questions at this point, or you're looking for a vote on that
Yeah,
agreement?
vote to authorize us to sign that agreement, which preserves our spot, our place in line.
I have no problem signing the agreement. When is the first opportunity for the public to provide input, the 25% design?
Yeah, so what we do is we just signed the proposal for 25% design, so they can get started on survey. We do a pre-25% meeting with Mass DOT, just to kind of get their blessing before we spend any more money. Prior to 25% design being submitted, we'll come back before the board. It also follows the same track as if the state was doing a project, so they'll have a design public hearing, just like we had for down on Air Road. In which case, they'll bring a couple, actually, I think by then, we'll probably end up settling on one, and then we'll bring that one option, let the public.
Okay, so it follows the same process?
Follows the
as
exact
Mass
same
does.
path
Okay.
as Mass DOT's.
When satisfied at this point? Entertain a motion then?
Okay. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize execution of a municipal project agreement, municipally funded design with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation for Mass DOT Highway Division Project 609054, Littleton reconstruction of Foster Street, with an estimated total federal participating construction cost of $3,600,000.
Second?
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, Keith,
Steve Venuti.
yeah, general obligation bond issue just under $6.5 million, right?
And this is the second time that we've had a bond issue in the last couple of months, and for both times, we've had to undergo a review by Standard & Poor's bond rating agency, and both times we emerged
AAA bond rating.
unscathed. AAA.
Although, that's good news. It looks like the interest rate's creeping up, are they?
Well, this is a 20-year one.
Oh.
Last one was a 10-year. But interest rates did spike about 20 basis points last week,
Yeah.
just when we were issuing,
Right.
and they're back down this week.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well, we just missed
Lucky
it.
us.
So we better sign this immediately, right? Okay.
But it's good news, we had 8 bidders for this, so people are interested in the town with that AAA rating. And with 8 bidders, we came in at 2.88%, even though the market's at 3%, so it was still a very good issue. FTN Financial Capital Markets was the purchaser. They're out of Tennessee, First Tennessee. If you remember, this is for the fire station and for the water betterment piece, from the betterment that the water department's doing to the point. We were authorized for $6 million for the fire station, and because of the premium that we've been receiving, it says 2.88%, the fire station, we're actually borrowing $5.6 million for the fire station, so.
About $400,000 savings, huh?
There's
Nice.
some interest cost savings that we're going to realize because of this. We got, it was around $500,000 in premium the last issue, $400,000 this, so we're doing quite well. But of course, with a 20-year note, there are tons of signatures we're going to need.
Anything further, or any questions from the board? This is terrific. Okay, you want to just circulate that we can sign through the rest of the evening? Is that what you'd like, or?
However you want to handle it, as long as I can get things back. Collective form. Anthony, collective form.
Who's the clerk?
That would be Cindy.
Special.
Okay.
Okay.
Try to discreetly work through these while we're going through the remainder of the agenda items. We had a Perils of Pauline cliffhanger on the Town Space Needs Working Group Citizen.
we need a
Oh, you need a
motion.
motion?
Yeah.
All right. In addition to signing the documents, we actually have to vote to adopt the bond councils. Madam Clerk?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to adopt the form of the vote prescribed by bond council, a copy of which is attached hereto and made part hereof, relative to the sale of $6,454,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2018 bonds of the town dated May 18, 2018 to FTN Financial Capital Markets with a true interest cost TIC of 2.881% for a premium of $448,935.47.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, now on to the Town Building and Space Needs Analysis Working Group. We left things, we had 2 candidates for a remaining spot on that, and we, so we did, I believe at the meeting where we were discussing it, we only had 4 members present. We decided to put off the appointment until we had a full board. Is there an update, Mr. DeCoste?
Yes, I serve as the chair on this group, and we had some discussion. Ms. Grandy and Ms. Nolet were both at the meeting. Ms. Napoli and I represent the Board of Selectmen on this group, and we had some conversations, and it was our thought that rather than picking one, we have a tough time getting people to volunteer for things. We have 2 people that are willing and able, both bring a nice background, so we would like to amend our previous at-large decision to have 2 members at-large and open it up to 3 members so that we can have both of the candidates be appointed tonight.
Personally, don't have any problem with that. I just wonder with Keith whether procedurally, whether we should post an additional vacancy, even if that's our intent or not.
Well, we posted the position of citizen at large member, so I think you're covered
Yeah.
under your policy, and we happen to get 3 applicants for that. And in my experience, the board has, for these ad hoc committees that are the board's creation, there have been numerous occasions when you have adjusted your original vote to...
On the fly.
To conform to the number of applicants, so...
Okay, I just wanted
Yeah.
the surety from the, from
Yeah, it wouldn't violate your policy, and it would be frankly consistent with what your practice is sometimes. so.
and Cindy is our other representative on that board, that that you're feeling as
Oh,
well?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great.
No problem.
All right, I'll add as a personal note, I hope I'm not telling tales too much out of school, Judy, but I just, it was I had a feel-good moment. I was out getting a coffee at Kimball's a couple of weeks ago, and who happened to be sitting there having coffee together but Kathleen and Judy? And they were just trying to sort out, I guess, what's in the best interest of the town. And I'm, it wasn't my idea to come up with appointing everybody, but having seen the two of them taking it upon themselves to sit down and get to know each other in the best interest of the town's building and space needs, I think this is a great outcome. So, welcome in a motion or whatever motions we need.
It would be the larger motion, the one in the middle, if you wanted to expand from 2 to 3, the citizen at large members. We've already filled one of those positions, so this would be, George Sanders was appointed at your April 23rd meeting, and at which point we only had one other
So
vacancy.
it's the second
It's the
motion.
second
Right,
one.
the second
Okay.
one, yeah.
Right.
The or, yeah.
Okay. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to amend its vote of February 12, 2018 by expanding from 2 to 3 the number of citizen-at-large members of the Town Building and Space Needs Analysis Working Group, and further to appoint Judy Grandy and Kathleen Nolat to indefinite terms as citizen-at-large members thereon.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Especially since it's a change in what we were anticipating. Everyone's okay with that?
No, I think it's great.
Okay, terrific. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Judy, is Kathleen here too? No? Anyway, she'll find out about it. Huh? Oh, yeah, you gotta remember to get sworn in by the clerk before participating formally in the process. Doesn't cost you anything, but...
Thank you.
All right. Okay, Keith, the next item is, we have, happy to be joined tonight by the Conservation Commission, and we have a discussion scheduled regarding the Cloverdale property, boardwalk parking issues. You want to set this up at all?
That's the setup, that Amy Green is here, our conservation coordinator. It looks like you've got
Almost everybody.
Almost all. Let's see. See, Mr. Pickard.
Yeah, but
A couple of them hiding back there.
Jim doesn't have his hat on, so you don't recognize him.
Right, right.
There he is, right there.
Okay. All right,
Let Amy.
I think that's me.
Yeah.
Good evening, I'm Amy Green, the Conservation Coordinator. I remembered this time. We're here just to give you an update on what's going on out at Cloverdale and what we see as the next steps and getting your input on moving forward. As I imagine most of you know, that one of the first things after the land was transferred to the town was there's a scenic farmland restoration, which was $40,000 with the CPA funds, which took longer than expected, both because of weather and contractual issues with a subcontractor of the person who had it. But it's completed, the grass is growing, still needs to keep growing. I think there was a bunch of brush piles that were created, and I think all but maybe one has been burned, so the last one will be burned next year during the final burn season. So sort of the next step that we were taking is we had received a grant from the Department of Conservation and Reservation for $8,000 or $9,000, I forget the exact amount, exactly, for a boardwalk to go across the wet meadow, the open wet field that forms the majority of Cloverdale area, so that there can be a hiking trail that goes all the way around, rather than just one that goes partway back and then you have to backtrack through it. So that grant covered the costs for the boardwalk, which will be in 4 different segments, and I think there's an aerial photograph in there that shows where it would go. And the labor would be volunteers coordinated through the land stewards primarily. That right now is in front of the Conservation Commission for a permit because of the wetland crossings up there. We put that temporarily on hold because we were asked to basically coordinate with you on what you can almost call phase 3, which would be adding the parking, formalizing the parking into there so people can get access. The boardwalk itself is being built, so it is accessible. You just won't be able to get to it yet. So that would be, eventually be able to build that up. But right now, or before the scenic farmland, the CPA funds were spent, you could pull off on the side of Great Road, and there was a little bit of pull off into what had been some of the white pines in there. And that pretty much got demolished when they were in there doing the rest of the vegetation management in there. So what we'd like to do going forward is to start considering putting in a more formal gravel parking lot, probably 6 cars at most. And I'm pretty sure what we're looking for tonight is agreement from you, discussion from you to move ahead and at least have the initial discussions with DOT about what they may or may not want for a permit for the parking lot.
Can I just ask a personal question? My memory goes back to the mid-'60s. I can't remember. When was this last in the cleared farm state that, it was sought to be replicated, at least in terms of not having all the brush grown in there?
Yeah, do you recall the time?
40 years.
Yeah. Which is why it was so overgrown. There's a lot of invasive species in there. And once they get going, they start spreading, and they can spread to other
Right.
parts of the town. So both trying to open up it back to the original meadow
Right.
land, as well as control the invasive species in there.
So it was farmed as recently as 40 years ago? I don't remember that. All right, Joe, you're...
There's a passageway underneath that road there, where the animals used to go
Yeah.
underneath to go to the pasture that was open.
Yeah, there's an old, or it's still there, an old cow passageway,
still
so they
there?
get, yeah, it's still there, yeah. I wouldn't walk through it, but it's still there.
Yeah. Conservation Commission, anyone else want to speak to this? Who's the chair these days? That's you, Jim?
I think it's a reasonable request. I think having the parking lot, probably because of the traffic on 2A there, is probably a must, so people can have access to the property.
And you're mostly just looking for a blessing to go deal with the Department of Transportation. Keith, is that...
Yeah, I think there were also some abutter issues which wanted to be brought to your attention, and the abutters are here.
Oh, okay, all right. Let me go to the board then first. Board members, any questions, comments? Chuck, you seem to...
My take is, I'm okay engaging the DOT right now to understand what it would take, but I would really like to coordinate a site walk out there so
Yeah.
that these kinds of things, putting eyes on are very important,
Right.
I think. So before we go too far down the road of selectmen explicitly supporting something, I'd like to find a time, perhaps with
Yeah, absolutely.
the land steward and Conservation Commission and any abutters who would like to have our ear as well.
I think
to
that's a
go
good
out and have
idea.
look.
Excuse me, can I?
Well, in just a moment, I just want to see if the board members have... I understand.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I thought you were champing at the bit to speak.
No, I'm
but-
fine. You asked the Conservation Commission. if they wanted
Yeah,
to
I did, yes, Anna.
Going back out of order.
No, I thought also there was a bit of a safety issue because of the speed of people that generally travel on 119. There needs to be a larger opening and a curb cut right there where the parking lot would be, so that people can slow down and get off the road.
Have a long enough area to get off, slow
Yes.
down, and park, yeah. Who have you had conversations to date with as far as the safety aspects on the parking area?
I haven't spoken directly with DOT yet. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't coming at it from the wrong angle
Yeah.
without going through you all
Yeah.
first. And, we discussed a little bit with Chris Stoddard.
Okay.
Not in any detail yet either. So we're at early stages and just want to make sure that we're getting input.
Yeah, I think legitimately that's got to be a key concern, getting that part right.
With this kind of use, it's sort of off-peak use. It's only 6 cars, so it's more like a driveway than anything else. But it's still obviously something you want to look at.
And what kind of timeline, sorry if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Chuck.
What kind of timeline do you think, and perhaps maybe I'll appeal to Chris and Beck rather than Amy, might Mass DOT give us some kind of input on what they're thinking there may be necessary?
Off the record, they probably give me an answer on the phone.
Okay.
Get hold of somebody.
Sure,
we'd have to file a permit, that can take weeks.
Okay. I mean, I guess that what I'm thinking is in terms of a sidewalk and just understanding where their mind may be at.
It's
I'm not looking for
simple as
anything in
feeling.
writing, but understanding what may be
I mean, if they'll
entailed.
answer the phone, I can get a pretty good idea of what they want to, what they're looking for.
Board have any problem with allowing Chris to at least make that overture? In coordination, obviously, with the...
I have a whole bunch of reservations.
Okay, all right, well, look, you want me to get a little more input first and then get back to you on that? Sure. All right.
I'm Bill Brown, 7 Old Orchard Lane, and I'm a land steward at Oak Hill.
Yep.
I've been to some work parties there.
I'm sorry?
I've been to some work parties at Cloverdale, like picking rocks.
Yep.
And other things, and I don't, even now, I don't think it's a big safety issue. I mean, there's enough room to pull off of Route 2A. In fact, I have a Buick, so I didn't pull into the, the muddy parking lot. I parked on the gravel that's off the road, off the pavement. But there's enough room there for several cars even now, without even going into the property. So I think it's a no-brainer for that aspect.
Okay. Other residents? Sure.
I'd like to address it also as an abutter.
Yeah, well, we know you just for the record, if you wouldn't
Karen
mind.
O'Neill, 63 Great Road. I live right next to Cloverdale and have for 42 years. Full disclosure, I'm also a land steward of Cloverdale, having been appointed 5 years ago by Art Lazarus. Now, the sight lines for Cloverdale as it stands right now are outstanding. I mean, they're far superior to either end of Grist Mill Road. They're far superior to the Cooper property. And the only difference in speed limit between us and the Cooper property is 5 miles an hour. I've never had an issue getting out of my driveway, even though my sight lines are not as good as Cloverdale. So I wish that the board would go out and look at it if they have concerns about it.
Okay, I think we've already expressed an interest in doing just that, so we probably should. Any other public or board member input? Sure, folks.
Maureen Adama, 5 Old Town Road. I'm also in butter, only for 12 years. So our concern is the fact that the property actually has been quite a mess for about going into 3 years. We actually walked the property on Saturday the 5th. There are, at least to today, when I came home from work, 3 piles that still have not been broken down. As of last Saturday, 5. In addition to that, there was debris and materials that might have been used for a burn that they did do in February. Whether you believe it's safety or not, I think it's really, really important to first have Mass DOT say, yes, you can have a curb cut, yes, you can have parking here. And then after that is determined, I think it's quite important to determine how much more of a financial aspect we're going to have for this property. We have asked to see how many people actually visit it and use it. We've not received that answer. And if I may approach, I actually have a document that's from Conservation themselves for CPC funds that they asked for another parking lot right here.
Thank you.
Of course, everything on this may or may not be required for this, but I think it gives us a pretty good understanding of how much more money we might need to put into a parcel. And, as a taxpayer, I think there's a lot of other things that we could possibly do with this potential cost of this property that no one else uses. And as an abutter, I think we would have liked to have maybe been informed. Love to see a lovely boardwalk somewhere. We walked the property of the Mary Shepherd Conservation also on the 5th. That looks like it would be an ideal place for a boardwalk because it actually would connect in to other trails and would actually take you through things very similar to the one in Stowe that we received as an example of what this might take place. So our position is, there's been a lot of financial aspect into this. We've been living in the construction zone for about 3 years. I don't think the property is being very well taken care of, and You know, I think it needs to be for all of Littleton. And if something's going to be done right, it should be done right, and it should be done with the whole community, whether it be the master plan people, FinCom, planning, even though I believe the Board of Selectmen should have probably been notified before a grant application had been even submitted to the state.
Okay, any response directly from Conservation Commission, any of those issues raised? Jim?
I haven't been too involved with down there, Rick Finley is one who's been really working on it. We're trying to open up conservation land so people can enjoy it. And we got more residents coming to town, so this happened to be one of those projects we're trying to work on.
I would, it's just in my own memory, we weren't always involved in the details of making conservation property more accessible, but this is kind of unique given where it's located and the size of it. You know, this is the first chance we've had to look at the detailed plans for the property. So if issues are raised, and, you know, and good information is presented, you know, we might need to be mindful of about both costs, safety issues, and how the property's maintained. Well, you know, it's on our radar screen now, so we can all work together to make sure that, you know, what ends up happening there is done, hopefully to neighbors' satisfaction, the state's satisfaction, and the town's enjoyment. Mr. DeCosta, do you have anything you wanted to?
I do have some comments and concerns. Initially, when this scenic farmland restoration came before the CPC, it was for returning it to, as you call it, farmland, scenic farmland. Scenic farmland restoration, that's the 40,000 was intended to be used for. I do think that it's been an eyesore, and it's been poorly managed up to this point, as far as the disposal of the material there. I do think that for us to place a boardwalk across this property, having gone on the property, a lot of it is wet, so there's gonna be a lot of boardwalks. It's gonna be much better off building a boat. I don't see how putting a boardwalk around this property prior to us getting the approvals to do parking is kind of taking things out of order here. I do think it's unsafe. I've with the addition of 15 Gray Road, I've pulled out of Gristmill. I've a number of friends up on Gristmill, in the Gristmill and Surrey, in that neighborhood. I do understand, I have some friends on the other side of 63 Gray Road as well. I pulled out of their driveway. People fly down there. The speed limit might be a 5 mile per hour difference, but people are going 60 miles an hour down that road. And I do think it's a dangerous stretch. I just think that I have some challenges with, we went from restoring a scenic pasture or farmland, and now it's becoming, we're looking to do a curb cut with the state. Mr. Starr certainly can give us his opinion, but frankly, Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not his, he can't tell us whether or not, he can tell us his opinion, but it's gonna come down to the Mass DOT, just like we can't put traffic lights in front of the high school. I mean, we don't get to opine. The state has to do that, so we should be not putting the cart before the horse. We should be getting that opinion first, whether or not we're gonna be making this something that we do wanna have people be able to access. I think the intention was to recreate this scenic view. And some of the open space that we have is not necessarily something we have to be putting boardwalks on. And it is gonna cost us money. It's not gonna be free. And I mean, I understand there's gonna be volunteers, there's gonna be labor, but there's materials that have to be purchased, there's policing of the area, cleaning of the area.
It just, a question occurs to me, on the boardwalk too, is there, what's the permitting process on that?
That's what the Conservation Commission is in the midst of now.
Well, I mean, construction-wise too, is it the building permit issue for that?
No, Roland says there's no building code for boardwalks of this nature, so it's really just getting the wetlands permits.
What about handicap accessibility?
Well, there's that and just safety and liability too.
The Department of Conservation has required this basically to be, the boardwalk itself to be accessible. They understand that, as with many boardwalks, you can't necessarily get there, but they don't want the boardwalk itself to become the bottleneck for the trails becoming accessible. So it meets all of their standards for that piece of it. And I will say, this is actually a very unique opportunity to have a boardwalk through an open marsh like this. It's not too often you get that opportunity. It's very wet in the spring and probably through the winter, and then dries out to the point where you can actually drive a tractor across it and mow it, the piece of it.
How is it for walking, like, right around now? Because I'm hearing enough issues out
You
here.
can
whether-
get, you see the yellow stub
Yeah.
line that goes from the parking down to the first boardwalk in
Yeah.
Brown. I mean, that's, you can just walk right down, and then
Okay.
the boardwalk location is staked out, so you can see, it's very easy to get an idea of. And if you want to walk the whole thing, you can, but
I personally just think I've heard enough issues in terms of concerns from neighbors, board members, what they might have heard from other citizens. And when we are anticipating, with the state highway, Mass Department of Transportation, whether it's financial considerations, that we probably ought to get on site and look at it so we know it a little bit better. And I'm going to ask this of the Conservation Commission. If you guys, I don't know what you were hoping to accomplish tonight, but whether you would mind, whether we could schedule something that everybody could be on the property, taking a look at it and talking about the same issues in front of it rather than just in front of a map of it, and try to schedule something either at the end of the day or on a weekend when it's convenient for everyone.
yeah, absolutely. And I will say, I also talked informally to a traffic planner at Tetra Tech, I don't know if you know the firm, and he kind of echoed what Chris had said, is he thinks that DOT District 3 is very reasonable. He did not expect them to care too much about this, but we need to find out what they want, so.
Okay, gentlemen, back again.
Rody Adama, 5 Old Farm Road, immediate abutter, and we walked the property this May the 5th, and we weren't able to access all the trail because it was predominantly wet. So just point of clarification, even right now it's very wet and not completely accessible.
Okay.
And the boardwalks are intended to remedy a
Yeah,
significant amount of that accessibility, is that right?
Right.
I mean, perhaps not 365 days a year.
Yeah, I mean, that's why there's 4 different
I
segments.
was just looking to get a sense of how much we could walk,
Right.
in a dry part of the year, but actually, it's rough.
Yeah, so I just wanted to frame restoration. Oftentimes, it's not pretty while it's going on, especially when you have the amount of invasive species that needed to be controlled. If you walk in some of the upper areas of the site closer to 2A, you can see kind of stems coming through that still need to be mowed to control it. I'm sure Chris can attest it's a wicked battle to get invasive species, and it's not pretty during the process. But having, the Joyce Williams land was an example of doing some selective clearing to restore a certain type of habitat. There's always succession, and you get larger and larger trees, and you get different habitat. And so my understanding is that this effort is to restore the wet meadow type of habitat, and you get different types of birds that we wouldn't have at Oak Hill, for example. And then it's also across from Oak Meadow. I know that children see it. And so it's valuable from a wildlife viewing standpoint. It creates a unique opportunity, and I think there's really great potential. And yeah, right now it's not pretty. I wouldn't argue that point at all, but it's part of the process. And I definitely understand the abutters' concerns. You have forest one day, and then and then you have a land control, basically. But I would ask, there is a vision, and sometimes it takes a while.
Board members?
I'd ask that if we we follow the vision step by step and put things in order and make sure that we're following that process. We've been looking at a $40,000 investment from the town, from the CPC, to create, to make it look nice. So I'd rather get it looking nice to get to the point where we can gauge the level of interest and get it under control, get it to a point where we want to go there. And then we can determine whether or not, during that process, we can talk to Mass DOT, and we can determine whether or not it is a safe place to put a curb cut and/or a parking lot to bring people in there.
And so you've already received the grant funding for the boardwalk, correct?
Correct.
That's right.
That's kind of the cart before the horse, in my opinion.
All right. Nonetheless, it's happened. I'm going to say we have to decide what our next steps are. I do think if something of that amount were at play for any of the town entities, I think we probably would like to be probably more in the loop about where it plays into bigger picture concerns, especially since, here it is, you've got the award, that's terrific. But we now have a number of issues on the table that folks have identified for us, and they're legitimate issues. So, let me just see, are there any other board
The
members?
other question I have is relative, is this 8953, is that specific to this property, or is it a boardwalk that we can put another?
Oh, no, it's specific to this
Specific to
boardwalk.
this property.
Cindy?
I just wanted to echo what Chase said about conducting a site walk,
Yeah.
a site visit. I'd like to pursue that. I think that's the best course of action, is to see what exactly we're talking about in person and just see what's been done on the project to date, what needs to be done. Just my personal opinion.
Mr. Knox?
Can I just ask a question? If you're talking about it's unsightly right now, if it was completely finished and there was nice boardwalk through there and the paths were there, would you be in objection to it then?
Yes and no. I think that because it doesn't really connect to anything else, the boardwalks and stuff that I've actually been on in neighboring towns, just this weekend actually over in Stowe, it is nice when they actually do connect to possible neighborhood or other trails. Anything would be a great improvement, but right now our concern is if boardwalk construction starts, there's just going to be another mess. I mean, I don't know how many people come up that route from into Acton into Littleton, but there were some plastic chairs that were sitting out there for close to 2 years, and they hadn't even been removed to the property until we actually attended the meeting in January, which was the first that we had even heard that boardwalks were proposed. So I do think that we should probably have a little bit more involvement in it. It clearly does need to be cleaned up. We photographed quite a bit of mess that was left over from a burn that happened in February. It has potential, but not, back in, 2014, when I was at the CPC meeting, it was supposed to be a 2-year thing. It was supposed to be restored strictly to a scenic farmland with a beautiful meadow coming in to Littleton. It was never ever going to be a guardrail broke out and go from there. And just while I have the floor, it's a reimbursable grant. It's not like they have the money yet, so that's why I do think FinCom might want to be involved in this. It's like you're first going to use Littleton tax dollars, and then you're going to ask the state to reimburse you. So that's a little bit different than just a straight-out grant, so just want to be clear on about the money part of it also.
I go back to the same question again. If it was constructed, it was all done, and it was beautiful, and people could enjoy the land that the town has, or the conservation has, that's what I don't understand.
Yeah, I think it's a yes, Joe. I think, but it does need to be accessible. So I think the idea to build a boardwalk and then see if you can get at it.
I'm not talking, the process probably has to be fixed.
No, I love boardwalks. I actually have 2 places that I walk on a pretty regular basis, and I'm all for that. But this process, I think, needed to be brought to light. But yes, absolutely, beautiful boardwalk, great, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if there's anything new out there, yes.
Jerry Powell, 8 Uplands Road. I'm a member of the Conservation Trust. We spend a lot of time advertising our open spaces to try to get people out to them. request the board consider this location. It self-advertises. Everybody goes down Route 2A, they see this location. We're hoping it'll get people started on getting out of their cars and walking. So if you would consider it not as a liability, I think that could be worked out, but as an attribute for an open space on a very busy road, a commercial road that people drive down that normally is inhabited by malls and whatnot. And I think everybody thought Cloverdale was a mall that was going in for years when that sign was up. I think it's a great location to start a location for people to get out.
Okay, Rick, you wanted to get in?
Yes, Rick Finley, Beaver Brook Road. This has been my project from its beginning, long before we applied for CPA funds. I adopted it as a project because the invasives had totally screened this particular property from the road. I think I'll send you some pictures of what it was before.
They're in the CPC grant.
Yeah, okay.
Pictures.
If you think it's bad now, Chuck.
I remember it, and it was like a
Vines are
total
weird.
cut. I know, again, I go over there a lot, I have friends that abut it. It's, it's been a couple of years now where it was clear cut and left with stumps, and stumps were buried, and I'm not pleased with how it's gone. That's my personal opinion.
Chuck, this is quite unique. Taking a piece of property like this that was devastated and trying to bring it back with volunteers, primarily. You can look at that $40,000 that went in there, but believe me, that there's more money, there's more time and effort that's gone in over the years to do this, and it's beginning. If you think it's going to be done now, it's not. There's still glossy buckthorn in there that's going to have to be worked on. And the idea of just to go back to the theory here is to create farmland that could be mowed. That mowing is intended, and it has worked well, to control the invasives in that area where we can mow. And we're still in the process of stumping, grinding stumps so that we can mow essentially the whole thing. But if we don't do that, we're going to be back to where we were before. And it's not worth it, so.
I'm just saying about the
Okay.
race.
Let me just see if I can suggest 3 next steps, and be happy to have that amended or replaced with a better idea if somebody's got one. But it sounds like at a bare minimum, we don't know what we're dealing with in terms of the state's thoughts about the the curb cut and the parking until we ask them, so we ought to do that. All of us will be better informed if we have a site visit on at a time and a day when we can all get at it, and everybody involved, neighbors, trust, Conservation Commission, Board of Selectmen, anybody. I think it's a highly visible spot. It does have abutters. Whatever process has been happening to date, I don't not having paid enough attention to it, I don't feel I should be too critical of it, but at this point, enough is on the table, and there are enough legitimate concerns about what does it look like now, what's it going to take to get it to look like what we want it to get it to look like, have we properly considered all the cost factors, have we had enough public input, all those legitimate points, and I think we ought to, as a third step, see if we can get folks to work jointly on a calendar and a punch list of everything that needs to be done in a decision-making process, so that we know it's been vetted financially, it's been vetted on safety issues, and it's also been vetted to account for the public and the abutters' concerns. And if it turns out that we do that and the public says, yep, we want it, it's a very accessible piece to the eye, as Mr. Cavallo pointed out, and that's a good way to invite the public into our open space lands, then fine. But it ought to be able to stand up to some public scrutiny, and maybe we ought to just commit a little time to doing that over the next couple of months, and if at the same time we look at those same set of considerations and say, this is never going to be clean, or we don't want the boardwalk, or there's too much safety concern, or whatever the issue might be, let it come out in the light of day and see what the people think. So I just think we ought to schedule a site visit, talk to DOT, and then have a little more formal process about how we get all these issues, publicly vetted, on the table, and reviewed by everybody who needs to have input on it.
Could I amend that last,
Sure.
that third bullet? I would like to see, and I think you hinted at this and maybe you were getting at it, the ideal schedule of what would happen, because I am sensitive to Chuck's concern about putting the cart before the horse, and I don't know if I completely understand the order of operations that we're proposing, both in terms of the property maintenance, so perhaps LCT could be involved in helping us understand what the property maintenance is, but also when the curb cut would go in, the timing of the boardwalks, et cetera, so seeing.
Yeah, I mean, even on, you mentioned the property maintenance, is that a signed agreement between the trust and the commission as to, for
No,
the?
it's basically, I mean, it's like with any of the properties, the land stewards, the volunteers has an immense amount of time on all the properties, doing mowing, taking care of fallen trees, building trails, putting in
Okay.
kiosks, doing mapping, adding signs.
Well, okay, but
smaller
those are
boardwalks.
the types of details I think that we, everybody ought to know that's what we're signing up for before we,
That's what you've
sign
already
up.
got, but yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what we already got
Yeah,
on
it'd be
other
easy
properties
enough to
where
do a
we're
schedule.
not hearing complaints. So we are hearing some
Yep.
complaints here, so I think we just want to give them the proper due.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
yep,
I would suggest that we don't let this drag on too long, because the price of materials is going up. And with going into good weather, where we might be able to get something done.
well,
I would suggest DOT is kind of the key to it, to start with, in my mind.
that's important consideration, I'll agree, but I think everybody should be at a comfort level. And as long as there are still issues out there, I think we owe it to ourselves to vet them. Any concern that anybody raised deserves to be looked into, and on balance, somebody may walk away unhappy, but let's at least give it a formal process and do it right. All right, Keith, do you want to maybe take a stab with, I don't know what you have in terms of a formal plan right now for the process, but is it something that we can work with to modify to see?
Yeah, I can lay something out tomorrow, probably, just in terms of where we are now, where we're going.
Public input, financial considerations, if you've already dealt with the maintenance, spelling out what the role of the stewards would be, if there's pieces there involving, if the building commissioner says that there's no inspection required for a boardwalk that, could see hundreds of users a year, I'd like to see that in writing, from.
I'd asked Roland 3 times just to make sure.
I would also be interested in knowing how many people are within define a walkable radius to that point. Because even if it is not super accessible from a parking perspective, that doesn't necessarily mean to me that the boardwalks are, I need to put eyes on it. It doesn't mean to me that the boardwalks are not valuable. So if you could also identify, within half mile, I don't know, I'm picking a number off the top of my head, how many residences are there and how many residents may be served by this? I think that would be a useful piece of
Yeah,
information
that's,
as well.
yeah.
Can I address that?
Karen, sure.
I'm the land steward of Cloverdale. We also have in the future plans to make access to Surrey Drive and to Grist Mill Road, the lower part, the original part, so that the neighborhood can access it by foot. It
Now-
won't be strictly a drive-to venue.
Good information to have. All the more reason to have a thorough proposal.
Mr. Chair, if I may, if that's the plan, and I love that plan, I was actually taking a look at maps while we were doing that, trying to understand if there was access, because the aerials look like they show a trail into Cloverdale from Surrey, but that only works if we know that there's an agreement with the property owner to allow that. So to the extent that a property owner may be willing to grant an easement to allow that, I would be very interested in.
There is a tax lot in that area.
Oh,
where
there
we
is,
want
okay.
the-
Yeah, you see on one of the maps, it shows
Okay.
there's conservation land and then there's additional town land.
I'm going to ask the board if they're content that we can, and the Conservation Commission as well, if we have a target mindful of your interest in moving forward, but also giving proper time to address these issues, if we get the site walk done, accomplished in the next couple of weeks, we could put the item back on our agenda for the 11th and revisit it then. Are you okay with that? Okay. Good. All right, I don't think we need any formal vote at this point. All right.
But it's okay if we do at least initial contact with DOTs and inform.
Well, I would,
Just to make sure.
organize it
We need
through
to understand
Chris.
if it's a non-starter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them.
Okay, great. And feel free to work with Chris on that and Keith.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, we had a 7:50 hearing, didn't we, Keith?
It's not a hearing,
It's not a hearing, okay, all right.
so nothing was overcooked.
Right.
You guys bring any chicken?
Did we clear up the room?
Did you bring pizza or chicken?
Right, right. If you brought pizza, there'd be a lot more people here, so.
Okay, we have a request for a change of officer beneficial interest to the Anthony's Coal Fired Pizza, all alcohol license. I did dine there last Thursday, took advantage of both the common victualers and all alcohol licenses while I was there. And,
Stop there. Police chief's not here, you good?
What about the entertainment?
there was no entertainment other than that which I provided myself, so.
Again, stop there.
Stand-up comedy?
Sit-down comedy,
Sit-down.
mostly, all right. In any event, Keith, you want to walk us through this
Yes,
request?
This is the second time in the last 2 years that we've received this sort of request from Anthony's, and when there is a change in the beneficial interest of the license holder, it does require the approval of the local licensing authority. I believe that the change affects 5 establishments, if I was reading the paperwork correctly, multiple establishments, including the Littleton one. And so the request is coming to each of the licensing authorities. Town council has reviewed this request, as he did last time, and has no issues with it. There is information in the packet.
Are there going to be different names on the license? If so, then shouldn't the police chief look into that as well? That's part of our practice, isn't it?
It is, and we did forward to the police department with no comment back.
Okay, then maybe if we did a vote, we could do contingent upon,
Approval,
yeah. I do see that even though there are changes here, there's familiar faces too, so that's an important consideration. I mean, things happen at the corporate level, that's one thing, but on the ground level, it's still the same folks running the show, right? Yeah. Maybe I'd ask the folks from Anthony's Coal Fire just to reintroduce themselves again, see if you had anything to add, and then ask board members if they had any questions.
Eric Bush, General Manager, been there since the very beginning. Nothing to add, just changes above my pay grade.
We all know.
My name is Tommy Whale. I'm actually the regional manager. I grew up in Westford, live in Acton next door. So I have all the restaurants here in New England. And the changeover is just, the company got purchased by investment portfolio called Catterton, and we changed the name from the owner to the CEO.
Okay.
Dan Marino still involved?
I have not had the pleasure of meeting Dan Marino. I couldn't decide what I would say if I actually met him, though, you know? Because he grew up, you know, he kicked the crap out of us all the time, so it was kind of mixed feelings.
Wait, as a Buffalo fan,
Ask
I'm
him-
seriously reconsidering
Just
my
ask him for his
vote.
rings, that's all. Where are the rings? That's not big enough.
Isotoners?
Yeah, isotoners, perfect.
Is Dan Marino
So
involved
fast.
is a very important question now as a Buffalo Bills fan.
Cool guy.
Yeah.
Traumatized since my adolescence.
All right, board members, any questions, concerns here? All right.
I don't have, before we take a motion though, I just want to say, probably should have brought this up in member input, but Anthony's has been kind enough to offer a lot of charitable opportunities.
Terrific.
And the boosters, Littleton Athletic Boosters is having a fundraiser
that's right.
tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow, that's right.
So
Forgot about it,
anybody
too.
that is hungry tomorrow from 11 until 9.
Chief, you're hungry?
20% of all of them, as long as they
long as you
make themselves there known, right?
Littleton
Yeah.
Athletic Boosters, 20%.
Good catch there, Chuck. Yeah.
So,
Thank
we
you for
appreciate,
the-
we
thank you
appreciate.
for the free plug.
Yeah.
A, and B, all kidding aside, being a part of the community is something that's very important to us, so if there's ever a way we can contribute with something like that or anything else, please approach Eric directly and be happy to do whatever we can.
We appreciate that.
Good corporate citizens, we are happy to have you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Keith, so we should go to a motion then, correct? All right.
Okay. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve a change of officer / beneficial interest application for the annual all alcoholic restaurant license under MGL Chapter 138 as submitted on April 10th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Continued good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hope to see you all tomorrow.
All right. Keith, some recap, town meeting and special town meeting items?
Yes, and the chair made mention earlier of one of the most remarkable things about the evening, which was I think the high level of confidence expressed by the voters during the call of the articles. The moderator established this procedure a couple of town meetings ago, and we moved away from a consent agenda, which is where we all came up with the ones we thought the articles that we thought didn't require debate, and instead said, well, the voters will decide what that consent agenda looks like. So I also agree, write that one down in history books, never going to happen again. But it was, I think, gratifying as well, not only to see that action took place so deliberately on those matters that the voters didn't want to discuss, but then we had time for the 4 articles that they did want to talk about. There was a lot of talk, there was a lot of discussion, and we got out still at a decent hour. So I think it was the whole thing was an interesting way where once the voters decide what they wanted to discuss, they spent the time that they needed to discuss it, and we had the time, and could still convene before, long before the stroke of midnight. So, I'm pleased with that the moderator allowed us to experiment in that way, and we'll keep on trying to get her done. So.
And if I could follow that comment, I was very proud of how, obviously I didn't vote in favor of the plastic bag ban, but I was very proud of how the town handled the petition, the citizen petition to bring that forward, making town council accessible, making sure that what was put on the warrant was legally valid and sound and represented the ideas that the petitioners were bringing forward. And that's a credit to both the petitioners and the town staff for working very hard to support residents in that way.
Yeah, it's not a completely open door, but I think on a judgment basis, that's the right call in this case. And we would, it's our council, but I think we all, historically have been happy to extend those services whenever appropriate.
It was interesting to see, just looking around a survey of nearby towns, on the night that we approved or disapproved the plastic bag and approved marijuana, that Westford approved a plastic bag, and they are not pursuing marijuana. And the dynamic in Westford, I was told by Jody Ross, the town manager, is that because their community at the polls, at the ballot question back in November of 2016, they had voted against. They were under 50% support for it, whereas we were 50, 55, 50.
Look at that, we're conveniently zoned right on the edge of the
Westford line.
No telling what you could.
Right, good business opportunities. Big town over there needs to be served. Well, I think that, I don't know, just political observation, Littleton has always had kind of a libertarian streak to it, which I think comes through in both of those votes. Anyway, you cited out a couple of items, Keith, that require further action.
There are 2 things that I would.
And I would add a third, too.
For a vote, in the motions printed above, that one is for the Board of Selectmen to file the home rule petition, town meeting authorize you to file it, and I've already, and our legislators have already taken delivery on the town clerk's certified copy of the town meeting vote to file the home rule petition on behalf of injured on-duty firefighter Scott Holt. But the Board of Selectmen should also take a vote pursuant to your authorization by town meeting to file that petition, so we have that as a matter of record. And the second item that I'm asking for tonight is for the board to actually authorize execution of a purchase and sales agreement on the acquisition of the Baker Homestead property. We don't have a PNS in place. The draft that we were provided before town meeting had a closing date, which was a month after town meeting, which would have put it in this fiscal year, when the money's not available until
Right,
July 1st.
closing date was July 3rd, right?
Well, it is now, but the original closing date was going to be within a month of May 7th, which didn't work. So we got that to be changed. And beyond the PNS agreement, I think we need to really be thinking about the next steps, including the historic preservation deed restriction on that property. Not to prejudge what the outcome is, but among the many discussions that have been had about the property was the idea, you buy it, you slap a affordable housing deed restriction on it, and then you sell it.
Historic preservation deed.
Yeah, historic preservation, as the means of limiting the potential exposure of the town for not being in compliance with the historic preservation requirements. That's one strategy. It could be something else. If the goal were to sell the property as soon as possible, that's October, which is the next planned time to have a town meeting vote. So we could be working around that in terms of we could be issuing a request for proposals. If you wish, you could do it. You could just seal bids, any number of things.
We are going to be inviting in the Historic Commission to
Yes.
come in July anyway. If there's a way that we could have a, something that council could draft before then for us to review, I'd like to see something that's drafted in-house rather than have somebody put something on the table for us.
Sure, right. I mean, grab all the boilerplate language you want, but let's see what the synthesized version looks like for us.
And design it in a way that we're all comfortable with it, you know.
We control the narrative.
Right. Okay, you want any discussion on those two items, or folks content with going ahead to vote either? I think the first one's pretty much straightforward. The second one is I think there are some variables, as Keith discussed, in terms of ultimate disposition of the property, but there's certainly no ambiguity to the desire to purchase based on town meeting, so.
Right. You want to take them separately
Yeah,
so that Joe
yeah,
can vote on
Madam.
the first one?
Okay.
Oh, that's right, yeah, two separate motions,
Okay,
please.
so the first one, move that the Board of Selectmen vote is authorized by unanimous vote on May 7th, 2018 special town meeting under Article 7 to petition the general court for special legislation authorizing the payment of certain retirement, health insurance, and/or benefits to injured on-duty firefighter Scott Holt after his retirement.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. All right, second motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote is authorized by two-thirds vote on May 7th, 2018 annual town meeting under Article 9, Item 9, to execute a purchase and sale agreement for the purchase of the Baker Homestead, 12 Robinson Road, for $250,000, and to direct town council to draft a proposed historic preservation agreement for the board's further consideration.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Mr. Knox, you're abstaining?
Yes.
Yes, I just want to have the record show that. Okay.
Very good.
Another town meeting follow-up item, and I would suggest maybe recommend to the board, see what they think, is the last-minute letter we got from Calvin Yap relative to the Yap property and the stone wall. I think it was clear we'll have time when we go around the business of conveying that property to abutters, but in the interim, there's enough disagreement as to what exists in terms of a stone wall. Chase seems to be personally familiar with it, having walked it before. I haven't been up there in I don't know how long, but maybe the day we go to do the site walk at the
Cloverdale Mall?
at Cloverdale, we could go around the corner and go take a look at the stone wall, Cloverdale Mall, at the
What was
yeah.
Calvin's problem with the whole thing? 'Cause I didn't get the gist of what.
Okay, well, as I remember the letter, and we all got the letter, was that there's a boundary stone wall there that he's concerned will be disrupted, in the course of conveying the property, or that it won't be protected, I guess is probably the better way to convey it, so. Protecting that wall while we're selling off the part of the property was the concern.
That's it, though.
I believe so, is that about it? We all got the
That is
letter.
about it. But I don't think-
That was about it. There was also some concern about constricting the access, and I think we as a board struck a pretty reasonable compromise there. So
Right.
I don't see us taking any action with respect to.
Yeah.
I mean,
The only personal promise I made is I said I would raise the issue that we should at least take a look at the wall and discuss it before we do any conveying of property.
I would say, I mean, my property has some of those stone walls abutting it, and they're all over town.
Yeah.
And that was the means through which you separated your property, right?
Right,
There was a
right.
farmer trying to keep the sheep in, or whatever it was. On that property, Chase, you can speak to this more, because you've been out there more than I have, but the placement of that wall, so if the abutter is going to do anything with that property, and they have a stone wall, and then they get 10 more feet beyond that stone wall that they can't touch, it's kind of an impractical purchase.
But is that the case? I don't know. What if it's right on the,
That's the case.
it is?
I mean, it's the case. What it depends on is their intended use, and I know one of their primary concerns, I don't mean to speak for them, we should perhaps ask them,
Right.
but their primary concern, as I understood it, was largely there are a bunch of large trees there that need to be managed. Now, if they want to agree to keep the stone wall intact, great, but I don't think we're bound by that if they say, you know what, get lost. But I'm happy to ask them, and
But I do think that they would redirect the stone wall so that there would be a boundary still, and the earth has kind of, it's built
Sounds like
up
you've had,
into-
which is fine, okay.
Yeah, so the earth has
I
kind of
haven't,
built up
I
into the
just-
stone wall, so it's not like a lot of the stone walls that you see, where you have 2 feet of aged, potentially historic stone walls, like you might see around the cemetery or something like that.
I don't mind saying no to somebody at the end of the day, but if anybody raises an issue, I'd just as soon give it a hearing and take a look at it so that I can make an informed decision personally.
I anticipate that the abutter will, in all likelihood, that they would probably keep that wall, they'd just move it back in order to put a swing set, to take down some trees, or just to manage the property better, to give them the space that the whole purpose that they wanted to purchase the land was.
Any harm in going up there and inviting them to walk out with us before we
I mean,
sell?
frankly speaking, we don't need their permission. We can
No,
walk
we
on the
don't, we
town
don't.
land there, but
I just think, anybody who has an interest in a potential buyer, people who have a, concern for the historic wall, we may end up determining, it's not, as you say, Chuck, I mean, there's a million stone walls running all through my parents' property, I mean, it's,
Right.
yeah, that's because we had a lot of rocks in the ground that people were trying to grow in until they figured out you can't grow anything here in town. No
Along
edges.
the edges. Look around Mr. Yap's property across the street, there's plenty of stone walls over there as well. That's just how
Yeah,
the
they're
farmers,
everywhere.
that's what they did. When they were tilling the fields, they moved the stones to the edges, created a wall.
I mean, I get your point, and you've obviously put in more time to date than I have in looking into it, but I'd still, one way or the other, like to go up and take a look at it, and I just think it makes sense to schedule it as a group effort. If you've already seen it, you've already seen it.
Does anyone
I think we should
does
go
anyone else
look
do it at
at
Cloverdale?
You've seen that too,
I have.
apparently.
I'm happy to go with the board. just
Okay,
because
all right.
Each of us might learn something, so.
And listen, I would love it if the folks who are acquiring the property said, we'll agree to a deed restriction or something to keep the stone wall in place. Okay, great, but if they don't want to, they don't.
If they don't want to, I may well say, okay, fine, at least we looked at it,
At least we looked and we asked, and that's fine. But there's our opportunity to engage them in that discussion.
Yeah, and, and Calvin too.
Right.
If he's got a point, I at least want to give him the time of day to hear him out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can we try
I
to
also-
schedule that
sure.
accordingly? Yeah.
He also, there were opportunities for Mr. Yap.
Oh,
to come
believe me, I
forward.
voiced all of that night to both he and Mr.
Sitting right
MacGyver.
next to him, yes, he did.
Yes. Okay.
And you want that with Mr. Yap?
Yeah, I mean, he's the fellow who raised the issue to us, and I think we ought to alert
We'll do it
the
too.
property owner, the prospective buyers, I should say. You know, doesn't make much sense if
Yeah.
we don't include them in the,
Right, okay.
if it has to be done as two separate visits, then fine, but it'd be nice to schedule it all together. You have a couple more updates, Keith?
Yes, I do, and we'll get them done quickly, but I
Good.
thought it would be useful, just as a matter of record, that there have been a couple of recent occasions at the State House when Littleton's activities have been touted, and I'm happy to get to do the touting. That at the event where the Lieutenant Governor and Governor proclaimed that all 351 cities and towns have entered into community compacts, I was asked to talk about Littleton as part of the first regional community compact for our Crosstown Connect Transportation Management Association, and was very, very pleased to be able to participate in that and to see all the recognition that we're getting for that joint effort with the other towns. And then today was the Housing Choice Initiative announcement at the State House. This was the invitation. This was a tweet. We had Maren and Mary from COA, who was their housing co-chair, since our housing initiatives, the 5 initiatives that we brought to our recent town meetings was really a joint effort of the Planning Board and Council on Aging and Board of Selectmen, that we had a representation from those groups, and got this, have to get.
Certificate of touting?
Certificate, yeah, official, the town of Littleton as Housing Choice Community. This qualifies us to apply for grant funds. It recognizes work that we've already done. And the money follows. In fact, the money also includes a grant from Mass Housing to look at, a planning grant that Master Plan Committee and the Planning Board applied for, to look at the area around the commuter rail station. So congratulations to us for that effort. And
Do you think we should invest in maybe a life-size cutout of Keith that they could have down at the State House?
They can just
Keep
leave
it by the-
leave me there, yeah. So, but in the touting, I wanted to mention
Yes.
again, it's the leadership of the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board that really brought us to this point for the housing initiative, so.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yes, all around. No, all kidding aside, we're on the radar for all the right reasons. Leadership and taking the bull by the horns on some difficult issues, transportation, housing, et cetera, planning issues.
And it is noticed that Littleton is being proactive in this areas, and so when we ask for funding, and we are not shy about that either, that we're.
We're doers,
They
taking
know-
action.
They know who we are.
I
and we're-
mentioned this to Keith earlier, I don't think any other members were here, but I had an opportunity Friday to see incoming Senate President Karen Spilka, current Chair of Ways and Means, and buttonholed her about the sewer project, told her it's not on your radar screen yet, but it will be, and Keith, actually, I wish I'd known it at the time, let me know that her husband actually works in the field engineering and.
He's an engineer with,
and
Ty and Bond.
Ty and Bond, so should have some familiarity with these topics. And, anyway.
Just, it's all part of staying on the radar screen. I
Right.
did see Jay Ash, and he will, I think, be tweeting something later. This is the list of the 67 communities that were designated as housing choice. Only 11 got a write-up, so, and I'll send you, as soon as I get an electronic copy,
Nice.
that we were one of the 11 communities that were highlighted for our efforts. And again, on the radar screen, and they're impressed with what's happening in Littleton.
Very good.
Okay, keep walking that fine line between praise and stalking, right?
As long as they're calling you a touter and not something else.
Right, yeah. No restraining orders as of yet, no.
Gateway orders.
All right, moving along to the minutes.
2 sets.
I did have one comment on the March 12th minutes, which is the second set item. Second. We'll get there, I promise. Our hearing with the CPC, the motion was made by Paul, seconded by me. The notes currently say and voted unanimously to question mark, wording not stated in video and don't see the agenda. I believe that was to fully fund CPC. It's on page
Yes,
126
I
of our
see,
full
yeah,
packet.
page 4, yep, to fully fund, yeah. You know, this,
That was the motion, right, or
Yes.
thereabouts?
yeah. CPC requests. Yeah, but that's, I'll accept that as a amendment, is that what you're?
Yes, I
Yeah.
move that we amend the minutes
This,
of
we,
March.
you know, whatever the reasons were that we're not seeing these for months later, we gotta find a way to get ourselves on track so that it's like maximum 2 weeks out, you know.
I suggest
otherwise-
we don't meet for 3 weeks, and that maybe will.
Well, that, yes.
Buy us some time.
Yeah,
That would do it, yeah.
can we get us up to date and then try to find a way to?
Yeah, we're parceling out the minutes now too. It was during the rush before town meeting and production of the annual town report and a lot of stuff
Mhm.
that
The
Diane was not-
award-winning town report.
Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah, soon to be award-winning, that Diane was not able to devote any time to.
Then
minutes,
we
so
need to have a system where we have, knowing that that's gonna happen annually, that we have,
Well, these were done by someone else.
Okay.
That they've been parceled, they're being parceled out to someone under Diane's supervision, so.
terrific. I just think we need to
Using the
get them in, you know, sooner, and just for the public too. People who don't wanna watch the video but wanna check the minutes, they're entitled to get them earlier rather than later.
Can we just change when, moved by Gerbeck, seconded by Lacoste?
Oh.
Mr. Izod
Izod
himself.
Lacoste? Yeah. Which, where is that?
Also on the 12th. It's,
Also on the 12th.
Yeah, and Bonnie's
under number
last
9, number 10, I'm sorry, minutes approval.
Number 10,
Minutes approval.
okay.
Moved by
Yeah,
Joyce,
yeah.
seconded by Izod.
You got all those, whoever's keeping track of
Yep.
them? Okay,
Whoever's listening to
And
the
then-
video,
right.
Did we already catch Bonnie's last name's missing on page 4?
Of which,
Have that
March
underscore
12th.
after.
Yeah.
oh, right. Bonnie Fleck. Yes, right at the beginning, yeah, it's a good catch. Content's pretty well captured, I don't have a problem with that, although, um, so long ago, I can't quite remember what the heck happened back then anyway. So, do we have a motion for the minutes as amended
So moved.
variously?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, then the motion has been made to approve the meeting minutes of February 12th in March with the various amendments. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We have one last agenda item, and doesn't look like we're gonna be joint meeting one tonight, Keith, right?
unless we want to call them.
We have an executive session, non-union contract strategy. I don't know that it's a secret that this is with the police chief nominee, and do we wanna, is he working tonight?
No, it's not.
He's not. Do we wanna just go into executive session and hash out the contract status?
We should do that, and then if we're all done, we can let them know.
Okay. All right, then I would look for a motion then, and the anticipation now would be that we would return to open session, in which, you know, we may well just be,
And if there's nothing to do, we go out into open session and say, motion to adjourn.
right. Good night, chief. All right, is there a motion for that here anywhere?
So-
It's up on the wall.
Oh, there you go. Cindy, you want to
Yep,
discuss it
sure.
first? Yeah.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, A2, to go into executive session to conduct strategy in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to convene an open session thereafter. It's a roll call vote.
Yeah, I need a second, though.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded then to enter an executive session, after which time we'll return to open session. I'll do the roll call then. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Gerbig?
Aye.
Mr. Lacoste? DeCoste?
All of us say aye.
Ms. Napoli?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy, aye. Okay, unanimous.
Go switch.
I got it.
Here you go.
Okay.
Wasn't sure what my back was gonna do
Yeah,
when I got
I know.
up anyway.
Please hit the switch when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, we are back in open session, and we have an item of business to conduct relative to the non-union contract strategy topic that we were just discussing in executive session. Mr., I guess, do we have a motion then?
Well, I just want to see if there's anybody in the hallway before we,
Okay.
just coming back into executive session.
Anything we
Anybody
need to say
outside?
prefatory, Keith, to it, or just go right to the motion?
I think you go right to the motion, as a reminder, the board had voted on April 11th to select the next chief, subject to, hey, there he is.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. You're here to see the most important thing happen tonight.
Right.
So, you had taken a vote on April 11th to select the next chief, and it was conditioned upon negotiating a contract, and we have now done that. So you have a final series of motions to make, and I should just mention that the dates go as follows, that Chief Matt King, his effective date of retirement is July 1st. However, from the period June 8th to July 1st, he will be on what's called terminal leave.
Terrible
So
term.
he will be.
Bad name.
I say that in the kindest way, but that it's, so that he will not be exercising police powers as of June 8th. So the need exists to appoint an acting chief for that period. And we've been able to come to agreement on all of the terms. And we're ready to have take an authorizing vote.
Okay. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Sections 41, Sections 97A and 1080, to authorize execution of the following with Matthew J. Pernard of Lunenburg, Massachusetts. A, an employment contract as Chief of Police for the period of July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2021, with a starting annual salary of $113,503.68 as the equivalent of fiscal year 2019, grade 14, step 2, and B, a memorandum of agreement as acting chief of police for the period of June 8th to June 30th, 2018, and an annual salary of $110,726.64.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Unanimous vote. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'd like to hear another motion. Do we have another motion? Chief, welcome
Move to
aboard.
adjourn. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Next meeting is?
June 4th.
June